Do wop do ba da da do wop ba da da da. How the American Revolution changed North America. American revolutionists failed to capture Quebec during the war. English-speaking Americans and French Canadians ensured that Quebec wouldn't join the United States. But why not Nova Scotia? You see, Nova Scotians, they spoke English, and most Nova Scotians were originally from New England. But you see, the city of Halifax was an important British naval base, and it was run by wealthy merchants. You see, these merchants wanted to turn Halifax into a trading port. These merchants had everything to lose in the revolution and a lot to gain by staying out. But some Nova Scotians did support the revolution. These people were called patriots. Some patriots even wanted George Washington to attack Nova Scotia. But, of course, Washington refused. Some people called privateers raided British ships along the coast of Nova Scotia. This weakened Nova Scotia's economy so much that Nova Scotia's loyalty to Britain was guaranteed.
Why? No, I would not.
About 1 in 5 Americans actually supported British rule. These loyalists, who looked like Luigi, were persecuted by patriots. Patriots would burn and set fire to their loyalist homes and farms. Patriots would abuse the loyalists. When the revolution ended and the Treaty of Paris was signed, 80,000 to 100,000 loyalists had to leave the United States. Some went to England, some went to other British colonies. Lots of people went to the farms of Quebec and Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island. At the time of the Revolution, there was about 500,000 African Americans. Most of them were slaves working on plantations. Many men who signed the Declaration of Independence owned slaves, like Thomas Jefferson. The sneaky Brits want to ruin the plantation economics in the Americas by offering the slaves freedom in the 13 colonies. Tens of thousands of slaves crossed the British lines. Some became bang-bang shoot-'em-up soldiers. Some became laborers and cooks and nurses and other occupations.
The remaining British colonies. In 1783, the British made strong efforts to build up their English-speaking colonies. They wanted populations loyal to the British crown. The Loyalists, including the First Nations and the African Americans, have been the first wave of people welcomed to the North. As refugees from the United States, they seem less likely to question the British rule. The British colonies had tiny populations and there was little unity. French-speaking Canadians did not like the British rule. People living in the East Coast still had close economic ties with Britain and New England, and they felt they had little in common with the inland colonies. It would be difficult to unite these diverse colonies. The domain of Canada would not be formed until 1867. The First Nations. When the American Revolution began, the First Nations felt they needed to choose sides. There was very little chance that they would stay out of conflict. The Mohawk Nation had good links to the British, but ultimately decided to keep a neutral position, although the Mohawk leader, Joseph Brant, disagreed. Joseph Brant was a First Nations ambassador in 1775 and secured the promised lands of Quebec if the Mohawks fought with the British. During the war, Brant led the Mohawks and the Loyalist fighters against the rebels. When the British lost the war in 1783, the Treaty of Paris recognized American independence and divided British North America. However, these negotiations ignored the First Nations, but Brant was mad and argued that the Haudenosaunee have supported the British cause for years. So the British government gave the Haudenosaunee land along the Grand River in southern Ontario. The Mohawks and other members of the Confederacy settled there in 1784. The Mohawks would then help the British again in the War of 1812.
The Constitutional Act. The Loyalists that settled in Quebec demanded that they be governed separately from the French Canadians. High maintenance, am I right? So the Constitutional Act in 1791 separated Quebec into two colonies. Lower Canada kept their French culture and stayed Catholic, while Upper Canada spoke English and was Protestant. Upper Canada would be governed by British laws and be called Ontario, while Lower Canada would be called Quebec and be governed by Canadian laws. Ontario and Quebec had two different governments and different members of the council. So there you go, boys and girls. That is how the American Revolution changed North America. Special thanks to Rob Schneider and